I'm gonna assume that you know absolutely nothing about competitive Pokemon. And if you're opening Pokemon Champions for the first time, every single guide you come across is probably talking about EVs, IVs, speed tiers, damage calculators, and a whole bunch of words that sound like they're kind of speaking another language. Probably time you learn what the heck they're actually talking about. By the end of this video, you're gonna learn how a competitive Pokemon match actually works, what all those basic mechanics are, and all the little things actual experienced players just sweep over because they've known this stuff for years. We're gonna learn about items, abilities, and even go over something that probably no one's ever explained to you, but like, why is everyone so obsessed with Protect? Let's get into it. First of all, Pokemon Champions is very different than any other Pokemon game. And if you've played other Pokemon games, you might be a little confused about how Pokemon Champions actually worked and what is even the point. There's no story, no gyms, no catching Pokemon, no exploring a region. The battles are basically the entire game. Pokemon Champions is basically like the chess.com of the Pokemon franchise. And all the hype is about building a team, learning different strategies, and fighting other players. I bet no one's told you how a battle actually works. First thing you're going to see when you jump into a match is team preview. This is so important because your whole match is going to be made or broken by what you choose here. Both players have access to 6 Pokemon, but that doesn't mean you're going to bring all 6. If you're playing singles, you only bring 3. If you're playing doubles, you bring 4. The trick is that your opponent doesn't know which 3 or 4 Mons out of the 6 you have you're actually going to bring. As you can imagine, that's where you play a lot of mind games and also set yourself up for victory based off of what 6 Pokemon the other player can potentially bring. Team preview is honestly your biggest decision of the game, and that's before the game even really starts. If you're new, then you need to know that competitive Pokemon is usually played in doubles battles, which means each player has 2 Pokemon on the field at the same time. This seems really basic, but it means that now not only do you have to choose which of your opponents to target with your moves, but you can also potentially target your own other Pokemon. Thinking about teamwork is essentially one of the biggest differences between casual Pokemon and competitive Pokemon. In casual, you're probably just trying to hit the opponent as many times as hard as you can. But in competitive, your Pokemon are 100% of the time working together. Which brings me to my next point, that if you're new to competitive Pokemon, you probably think that every Pokemon just wants to hit the opponent hard and fast. But you need to think of it like members of a sports team. Or if you're a nerdy gamer like me, you can think of it like a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. Everyone on the team basically has a role. Some Pokemon are attackers, some are tanks and they just want to soak up damage. You have your support Pokemon. Some control speed, which happens to be one of the most important mechanics in the game, because if you can hit first, your opponent can't really do anything. So just because a Pokemon isn't necessarily built or good at getting knockouts, they could be one of the most important members of your team. Now let's talk about items and abilities. Every Pokemon can hold 1 item. You need to decide on that item before you bring it into the match. You don't need to press a button to use it, it just works automatically. For example, one widely used item in competitive Pokemon is a Focus Sash, which at full health lets a Pokemon survive a hit that would normally take it out. There's certain key items that you need to be aware of, because knowing which Pokemon on the other side is, for example, holding a Focus Sash can really change the course of the game. Every Pokemon also has something called an ability. Every Pokemon can have 1 ability at a time, but you can usually, in most cases, choose from more than 1. You choose which ability your Pokemon has when you are training your Pokemon from scratch, which I will go into in another video. The only exception to Pokemon only having 1 ability is that if a Pokemon Mega Evolves with their Mega Stone, their ability can change in the middle of a match. And you can imagine there's a lot of shenanigans to do with that. And it's a big part of why you'll run one Pokemon over another, even though they might have the same moves. One might have an ability that suits your play style a little bit better. One thing that confused me so much when I first started is why every single Pokemon I saw ran Protect. Why would someone spend a whole turn literally doing nothing when they could just attack? Now in singles, that is maybe a little bit closer to the truth, even though it's not quite true. But in doubles, this can change everything in a match, because while one of your Pokemon might be protecting from the enemy, your other Pokemon next to it is probably using that turn to get some damage out. And it can create a scenario where, for example, both of the enemy Pokemon attack the Pokemon that you protected, and now they've wasted their entire turn while your partner Pokemon is able to get off a free attack. There's a lot of use cases for Protect. You can use it, for example, to stall Trick Room, wait out weather. If you guys are interested in a guide on all the different ways to use Protect, definitely let me know. But basically, without overwhelming you, it's great for buying some time or playing some mind games with your opponent, and almost every Pokemon, when you train them, should be running Protect, unless it's for a very specific reason. Now, in my opinion, the most important mechanic in the game is speed. Most of the time, the faster Pokemon attacks first. The one exception to this is priority moves. Priority moves basically just overlook speed tiers and go first no matter what, but they're usually weaker. So if your Pokemon are hitting your enemy first, that alone can just win you the game. And there's specific moves in the game that changes the speed of your Pokemon and the turn order. The opposing Pokemon might be stronger than you, but if you hit them first, they won't even get the chance to show it. So if you've ever wondered why, for some reason in a match, your Pokemon are always hitting last and you just can't seem to get a hit off, it's because your opponent is probably taking into account and maximizing their Pokemon's speed. This is something you can do through training your Pokemon properly, or specific moves in the game like Tailwind, Trick Room, Icy Wind. Those can all affect speed tiers within the match. I'm planning to make more guides explaining all these types of things that more experienced players accidentally just skip over and talk about like it's obvious. I only started playing Pokemon competitively when Pokemon Champions came out, and I've really been addicted ever since. And it's been kind of tough finding the basic knowledge that I've needed to become competitive, but I'm really happy to say I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job, and I want to help you get there too. Definitely let me know what types of things you want to learn. You can also catch me on stream. I stream Pokemon Champions almost every day, and I hope you'll come say hi. Catch you there and have fun playing.